With the 2005 revival of the show, Russell T Davies would bring about loads of new iconic parts of the show that we know today. One of those would be the introduction of the Doctor Who Christmas special, a festive little bonus episode for everyone at home to enjoy as part of their festive celebration. But Doctor Who and Christmas have a relationship that goes back much further than 2005. From Christmas singles to annuals, the 20th century had a plethora of festive Who content to go around. But what was lacking was that iconic Christmas special. Notably, the 7th episode of the Season 3 serial, The Daleks' Master Plan, fell on the 25th of December. The Feast of Stephen was decided to be much more of a comedic, pantomime-like episode, with little to do with the grim overall story. The famous final scene famously breaks the fourth wall, with the only case in classic Who in which a character explicitly displays knowledge of being on TV.
Incidentally, a happy Christmas to all of you at home!
No subsequent episodes of classic Who were even broadcast on Christmas Day, and so presumably the whole Christmas special was just forgotten about. Now, I could do an in-depth behind-the-scenes look at all the Christmas specials, but currently it's the 14th of December, and I don't particularly want this video to be dauntingly long. So yes, this will essentially be a top 10. Also, when I say Christmas special, I don't mean festive special. I'm sorry, Chibbers, but I like my Doctor Who with a side order of turkey, not hungover Brits after a New Year's rager. Clearly, if you thought this was going to be like any of my other content, you were wrong. But enough crying. Let's talk about the the revolting. The episodes I wouldn't touch again, even if my family were held at gunpoint and I was being forced to listen to the Greatest Showman soundtrack. We're past the point of this being a serious video. I mean, I haven't even seen daylight in literally a week. It's either now at 3 AM or never.
How do you get on?
Watch and learn, kid.
God's sake!
This hammock has developed a fault.
What on God's green earth was going on here? Okay, yes. Do I get a little emotional towards the end? Do I actually kind of like Alexander Armstrong? Yeah. And is Matt Smith realistically the only good part of an otherwise tear-inducing episode? Yes. But that is no excuse for this absolute garbage fire. You know, not too long ago I played this game called Erica, and I thought I recognised the actress that was playing it, so I did a bit of Googling, and it turned out it was Holly Earl who played Lily Arwell in this episode. Now, interestingly, that game was also directed by Jamie Magnus Stone, who's directed a good number of Chibnall's era. I just thought that was an interesting coincidence, because there isn't really much to say about this episode. I don't want to be too negative.
Oh. If you two are about to get excited, maybe you could get rid of that spaceship first.
I feel a bit let down by this one because, you know, it was Christmas 2016 and that was like the year of no Doctor Who. Well, I mean, we're kind of used to having long breaks between Doctor Who now, but that was like our first proper like big break with no Doctor Who, aside from Class, which I do like, but let's pretend Class doesn't exist. And then we got the return of Dr. Mysterio, and it was just a bit of a letdown, really. It's got Alex Hunter from the FIFA games in it, and then brain jar things. This New York-based superhero story that doesn't particularly make sense in the world of Doctor Who. It does have its moments, and I'm glad they kept on Nardole, because I do really enjoy Matt Lucas. But this story doesn't really fit, if you get me. The guest cast was meh, and the villain was lackluster, and all we have to show for it is just like a nice scene at the end. That's basically it.
Stand back! What have we got here then?
Hold on, who are you?
I'm the Doctor. Simply the Doctor. The one, the only, and the best.
Now look, from here onwards, I actually generally enjoy these episodes, but the next Doctor just doesn't really do it for me. I enjoy the whole stuff with David Morrissey as Jackson Lake. I think that was really interesting. But the Cyber King, Miss Hartigan, the whole Victorian setting, it just doesn't really work. Like the Cybermen skulking underground and stuff like that, for some reason, it doesn't work. It's hard to pinpoint. Well, I'm sure someone has. I'm not a very good person at pinpointing exactly what's wrong with these kind of things, but it just doesn't work. Miss Hartigan isn't intimidating, and then like kind of having her work with the Cybermen kind of just ruins their character. It's like the Cybermen can do all of this on their own. You never really see people talking about the next Doctor, and there's probably a reason why.
So all of time and all of space is sitting out there in a big blue box. Please. Don't even argue.
Inception meets Doctor Who meets f***ing Santa. What an odd episode this is. This is kind of a guilty pleasure episode of mine, which is weird given it's at number 10, but Nick Frost and weird dream things. It's really quite an interesting episode. It got thrown in at a time where Jenna Coleman had made the decision to stay on despite it previously not being the case, and kind of falls victim because it does kind of feel like a goodbye to Clara, but also not at the same time. In my opinion, there isn't really anything abhorrently wrong with this episode. It's just quite odd. It's there, you know.
You know, you're the same as all the rest. Sweet little Clara works at the Rose and Crown, ideas above their station. Well, for your information, I'm not sweet on the inside, and I'm certainly not... Little.
I reckon this episode would have been earlier on my list if not for Victoria and Clara. She really kind of like holds the episode together, and without Victoria and Clara, it might be honestly one of the worst. Well, I mean, it is number 9, but it would be even worse without Victoria and Clara. I think a lot of people have noted she would have made a really good companion over like normal Clara. But you know, I've come to love normal Clara, so. I feel like I also have to note that like Richard E. Grant, yeah, obviously he's in it, but also like Ian McKellen is in this episode. People often forget that he's like the voice of the Great Intelligence, which is so weird to me that Ian McKellen's in Doctor Who. Like, it genuinely doesn't like go into my head, but I honestly think it's so cool that he's in Doctor Who. But also, the Great Intelligence is a bit of an odd villain, and he was kind of just completely wasted in the name of the Doctor, I think. I think the Doctor moves on too quickly. The 10th Doctor was hung up on Rose right up until the end, but 11 just skulks on a cloud for however long off camera, and then pretty much gets back to normal after just one episode. However cool living on the cloud is, and however iconic the entering the TARDIS scene is, the villain is just meticulously meh. Imagine if they did like a properly character-driven episode. Explore more of like the Doctor after Amy and Rory, instead of just like one mini-sode that they did. Focus on him like properly opening up again. They did a tiny bit of it, but I just think this could have been so much more and so much better. But you know, maybe get rid of like the Paternoster gang. I actually kind of like the Paternoster gang, but yeah.
And it is gonna be fantastic.
So David Tennant's first episode barely has him in it, sure. But does it work? Yeah, kinda. It really does sell the impact that the Doctor has to be able to make such a power shift in just like 5 minutes. The Santa robots are certainly odd, yes, but at least they'd be used more efficiently in the following Christmas special. This episode, while a bit all over the place, does really have its moments, and it does hold a special place in my heart. It's obviously notable in being the first Christmas special as well, so I have a lot to thank for from this episode. Also, Song for 10 is an absolute tune, and you cannot convince me otherwise.
Doctor, I let you go.
When this episode broadcast, I was quite indifferent about it. In fact, I didn't really like this episode at all when I first watched it on Christmas. I was like, that is the worst Christmas special ever. Okay, maybe I didn't think that, but I just thought it was just like a terrible send-off. But upon rewatches, I've changed my mind completely. This isn't meant to be another like big adventure, but it's meant to be a swan song for Capaldi. It's a nice change of pace after Series 10's finale, and while being nothing more than a glorified epilogue, it's still a nice send-off. I'm one of those few people who actually liked Into the Dalek as well, so seeing Rusty was like a nice surprise for me. And the Lethbridge Stewart link is always a plus, not to mention the fantastic regeneration scene, and of course, directed by Rachel Talalay, who is easily my favourite Doctor Who director.
I'm going to die.
Well, so am I one day.
Don't you dare.
All right, I'll try not to.
Part 1 of this story had 3 jobs: establish the threat, develop the relationship between the Doctor and Wilf, and set up the second part. In my opinion, it does it pretty well. I can't think of any scenes in this episode which aren't like simply iconic. The Doctor with the Ood, the Master being very hungry twice, Wilf and the Doctor's little cafe chat. I could go on. During writing this video though, this was at number 5, but I've decided to swap these places around because I simply think that the second part is just that much more superior. It kind of dwarfs this episode in a way. It's really good, it does what it needs to do, but it's all just in service of the intense second part.
I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below.
I'm not sure what Russell T Davies's fondness of having a song in his Christmas specials were, but I love them. The Stowaway is still an absolute tune, absolutely no complaints. Not as good as Song for 10, but it's still up there. Doctor Who Christmas to a T. And to top it off, there's bloody Kylie Minogue, who knocks it out of the park. It doesn't try anything too extreme aside from nearly killing off the Queen, but it works to its strengths, and it's overall a really enjoyable romp.
I will not forget one line of this. Not one day. I swear. I will always remember when the Doctor was me.
A lot of people will tell you there's a lot wrong with this special, and yeah, there is. It's subject to a lot of classic Moffat problems, but similarly I think it's subject to a lot of his benefits. It's funny, it's sad, there's action, and there's intrigue. I watched this one more recently than the others on this list, and honestly, I've probably put it here because of Matt Smith bias. It does try to do way too much, but I still massively enjoy this send-off for my favourite Doctor.
Find someone.
I don't need anyone.
Yes, you do. Because sometimes I think you need someone to stop you.
This story properly encapsulates the Doctor Who Christmas special. It moulds a fun family adventure without completely forgetting about the previous series finale. And Russell T Davies makes this extremely clear, but also shows us how Doctor Who can continue without Billie Piper involved. Not to mention Catherine Tate and Donna Noble, like just absolutely smashing it out of the park. Her inclusion was one of the best things in Doctor Who history. She brings about this amazing relationship with the Doctor, this believable and developing friendship, which obviously gets looked into more in Series 4, but this lovable adventure really stands out, and it really deserves this third place spot.
I hate you.
No, you don't.
In the same vein as Twice Upon a Time, this one didn't stand out to me when I first watched it, but obviously rewatching it, I can see it as the rom-com that it is. This was the perfect last story for Alex Kingston and the character of River, bringing her full circle. Greg Davies and Matt Lucas added the fun, comedic lightness of the episode, which contrasted the relationship of the Doctor and River, culminating in this witty climax and really heartfelt ending that I just can't help but, keep watching that clip of Beryllium. You've got to give Moffat a proper plus for the character of River Song, introducing her all the way back in Series 4 and presumably knowing her story all the way through. We don't know if that's for sure, but Beryllium is mentioned in her first, in the second part of her first story. So presumably he knew that's where he was going to end up writing her, but you know what? Let's just give him the benefit of the doubt and say that he did. Moffat genius. What a fucking episode. The Christmas Carol formula was made for Doctor Who. I'm convinced someone went back in time, told Charles Dickens about Doctor Who, and then he wrote this, knowing that it would be probably not. In fact, definitely not, but it's a nice thought. This Christmas special encapsulates everything that Doctor Who and Christmas should be. The Runaway Bride is that perfect Doctor Who at Christmas, but this takes it that step further. It's Doctor Who at Christmas, and it's fucking depressing. Earlier I noted that Time of the Doctor was like happy and sad, but that episode kind of crisscrosses between them. This episode has hope, darkness, pain, joy, all at the same time. Whoever's idea it was to cast Katherine Jenkins in her first ever acting role needs to be given a lot of money. Abigail's song is honestly, no questions asked, one of the most beautiful pieces of music I've ever heard in my life. And Michael Gambon, who thought that Dumbledore could be Scrooge? Actually, to be fair, no. Michael Gambon's portrayal of Dumbledore could easily be Scrooge. He's a bit aggressive. He perfects the Scrooge-like character completely, and he absolutely sells this magnificent work of art. The Doctor isn't even necessarily the protagonist of this story. He's both the protagonist and the antagonist. Same with Kazran. Like, he is initially the antagonist, obviously, but he also becomes the hero of the story, which is obviously how that tale works, but it's just done so beautifully. And having Doctor Who time travel, so you have like the ghost of Christmas past, present and future, having Kazran as younger Kazran meet It's amazing. I honestly can't explain. This episode I watch every Christmas. Like, I just love it so much. It's honestly one of my favourite episodes of Doctor Who, full stop. It's just that good. And this was Moffat's first Christmas special. Like, his Christmas specials are very up and down. He has the worst one and the best one. And it's like literally the worst one is the one the year after this. So I don't know what he was doing. But this episode, I cannot stress enough how amazing it is. Now, obviously, Chris Chibnall has decided no more Christmas specials. I mean, at least for his era. Maybe when RTD comes back, we'll get Christmas specials again. We can only hope. I know a lot of people don't actually care about Christmas specials, but like for me, it's genuinely like after 2017, it was just weird having a Christmas and then not watching a Doctor Who Christmas special. But you know, the New Year's specials are here. We'll have to take them. I didn't want to make this video excessively long, so some of the episodes I didn't really go into a lot of detail, but if I felt like I personally had something to say about it, I carried on. But yes, this is a bit of a different video. As always, this kind of video comes with a lot of opinions, so, you know, feel free to debate and criticize and talk about all these kind of things in the comments, but don't attack anyone, their opinions. Like, this is just my randomly thrown together list of top Christmas specials of a random TV show that we all happen to enjoy. But before I go, honestly, I hope you guys have such an amazing Christmas and a happy New Year. I'm Sam, and I'll see you next time. I'm not sure what Russell T Davis's fondness of having a Christmas special in his songs. Yeah, because that makes sense.